Good morning. My name is Grace Lim with the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined with
Amelia Honorado, Director of Exhibitions.
And Alana Ryder, Executive Director.
and we're here at the Mystic Museum of Art, and this is Business Over Breakfast.
Get out of bed, the business is calling, the coffee is ready. Wake up with the best, so wake up with the best. Business over breakfast with the Ocean Community. Business over breakfast with the Ocean Community.
Can you walk us through the space and where we're at right now?
Absolutely. So welcome to Lux, Connecticut, Velvet Mills to Modern Runways. This exhibition traces the evolution of textiles and fabric and fashion from the pre-colonial period to the present day. So we have numerous pieces on loan from the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center, Mystic Seaport Museum, and Historic Stonington, juxtaposed with contemporary fashion by Toriana Soro, Zaria Lockhart, Christian Siriano, and Peter Somm. And the beginning of the exhibition starts with kind of placing Mystic and this region of Connecticut into the global scheme of the textile trade, because even before there were velvet mills in Stonington and Mystic, this area was producing clipper ships that were being used in the 1800s to ship those objects all around the world. And so we've got a great map that shows clipper ship routes. We have objects that were part of that global trade, including sewing kits from China or inspired by China and Japan, and then going into kind of the history and techniques that were being used hundreds of years ago with embroidery, bead embroidery, applique, quilt making, accessorizing, and also the modernization and mechanization of equipment, including looms and sewing machines.
How long is this exhibit running for?
Until October 11th.
Okay,
So
awesome.
Plenty of time for school to start and other groups to visit.
Yeah, and then you wanted to tell us a little bit about what's going on behind us?
Yes, for sure. So this is the section of Lux, Connecticut, where we have lots of material about the two velvet companies that we're diving deep into. So the Rossi Velvet Company is over here, and American Velvet Company is this way. And one was in Stonington, and the other was in Mystic. And you might notice that there are these very decorative shapes on the green wall behind us, and that references the architecture of both of these velvet companies. So the Mystic Seaport now uses the Rossi Velvet Company for collection storage and other purposes, but it has this kind of tiered, almost cake-like top here. And then this sawtooth roof line was used to maximize daylight during hours when workers were doing multiple shifts at this company. And in between these photographs and ledger books, also material like these shuttle looms here, we have Zendaya, which is designed by Christian Siriano. And this whole exhibition has mannequins, really. It's punctuated by these 22 mannequins that feature really remarkable looks by the four designers that we mentioned.
So as you go throughout Lux, Connecticut, we talk a lot about how different types of fabrics were made, how different types of garments were constructed. But once you have the dress that you want to wear, what pulls the whole outfit together is the accessories. And so in this section of the exhibition, we juxtapose some historic examples of bags and purses with contemporary ones designed by Zaria Lockhart. And one of my favorites, everything's my favorite in the exhibition, but certainly one of the oldest objects on display is this finger woven pouch on loan from the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center, which dates back to the 1700s and shows this great cultural trade between the indigenous Mashantucket Pequot population and the English settlers who were arriving in this area, because we've got white glass beads juxtaposed with white beads that were made from porcupine quills. So this great blending of new materials and traditional ones.
Well, down this ramp, we have a number of ads from American Velvet Company's Boulevard Velvet, and these are largely from the 50s to 70s. Some people say that Twiggy or a Twiggy doppelganger is here, but it's an incredible showcase of the ways that velvet were really common for special occasions, and even some more casual outfits.
Who curates this exhibit?
Yes, so we have a 3-person curatorial team. So Amelia, Cara Lapalato, and I are part of that. So it's very collaborative.
Yeah. How did you guys decide that this was the exhibit you wanted to go with?
So the evolution of this exhibition was actually kind of interesting. I can even hold this so you don't have to stand there like that. The collaboration was really lovely. This all came about very quickly. There was something else that was in place for the summer that through a series of circumstances was no longer viable. And so we knew that we wanted to eventually have a quilt exhibition again. We've had those in the past. They've been very popular. And then as we were talking to quilters, we got in touch with embroiderers, and then we reached out to Historic Stonington, who recommended reaching out to someone who recommended someone who recommended someone. And so it ended up being this really wonderful, supportive environment where, like the Mystic Seaport Museum, not only let us borrow historic objects and photographic reproductions, but also display cases. And all of the mannequins that you see throughout the exhibition are donated either by RISD's Fashion School or by the Newport Preservation Society. And so it's just everyone kind of coming together and making suggestions and making recommendations. And then Alana, when she started here in December, was like, what if we reached out to contemporary fashion designers? So originally it was going to have a much more historical bent to it. And this actually enriched it and enlivened it even more to show that fashion and garments connect us across cultures and times and continents and oceans. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's been fun giving tours of this exhibition because people might look at a historic object that's 200 years old and think it's more modern than the modern counterpart that is on display next to it. And so, like, the fashion trends change, but they are still part of who we are and how we express ourselves.
So there's some interesting wallpaper up in this room. If you want to tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, sure. Well, it does look like wallpaper from far away. It's actually fashion designs from our visitors to the museum since we opened on June 26th. And floor to ceiling, literally, we will have these wonderful responses to the exhibition. Some of the designers also actually left us a couple. There are 3 from Christian Siriano and 1 from Toriana Soro up there. But essentially, museums can often be a place where there are a lot of rules, no touching, no running, all of that. But this is really a space that's almost always devoted to making art, which is, I think, very important for us because we have a lot of young people in our midst too. There are some campers outside right now, but it's great to have a place where we can capture and keep these for our archive, in fact.
So we do have a whole section in Lux, Connecticut that's dedicated to exploring upcycling and the reuse of fabrics, which is becoming more and more popular amongst contemporary designers like Toriana Soro, who almost exclusively work from deconstructed, previously existing garments that are recycled and dismantled and turned into something new. But that is not a new idea. So behind me is a quilt on loan from Historic Stonington. It was made in around the 1870s, probably after 1872, because all of the fabric was salvaged from a shipwreck that washed ashore on Stonington Point. And Historic Stonington believes that shipwreck was the Metis, which sank off of Block Island in a storm in 1872. So Louise Thayer, the artist, and her mother salvaged all that fabric, cleaned it, cut it up, turned it into a beautiful quilt that is a very traditional New England pattern called Ocean Waves. So again, this is about 200 years old. Next to it is a contemporary version that was created in 2017 by an artist named Kate Themmel, who's a member of the Studio Art Quilt Associates here in Connecticut. The title is Transformation, so it's about a monarch caterpillar turning into a chrysalis to become a butterfly, and that title and theme is really good for the materials involved because all of the silk used in the construction of this quilt were remnants from silk neckties. And so if you look really closely, you can see all of the really lovely patterns. There are some great raccoons and sheep and roosters. There's a little ice fishing man. Very popular with our summer campers, looking at all of those things. And we also do have a touch point on the environmental legacy of fashion, and particularly the velvet mills here in Mystic, with objects that have been found in the river by a local historian named Mary Hendrickson, as well as recountings of prior to the mill closing in the 1950s, they were just dumping everything into the river, including dyes. And so there are stories of kids going swimming in the summertime and coming out of the river a different color than they came in, which ties in really nicely to the final room in our gallery, which has all 5 colors of the color palette, which were all inspired by historic velvet dyes. And so we've got blue, red, green, purple, and then the pop of gold, which was a very traditional embellishment color.
So compared to the rest of the exhibit, I'm seeing a lot more artwork on the wall. Do you want to touch on that?
Of course. So this space we call Liebig Gallery only has 5 mannequins, so there's much more breathing room in this area of the show. And I'd love to share more about Peter Som's works, which are to my left and right here. And again, as mentioned earlier on this tour, there is so much inspiration from the past, from hundreds of years ago, from earlier in the 20th century, and this is one such example. Peter Som designed this beautiful velvet coat after being very inspired by Cecil Beaton's work for My Fair Lady. And so we have some examples of those over on this side of the wall. But over here we have, amazingly, one of the pieces from our own collection. This is a work by Angele Davis, who was the daughter of Charles H. Davis, who was one of our founding artists. And it's this incredible fashion sketch. We don't know if these were ever actually made into clothing, but alongside Peter Som's work, there's just this very nice call and response going, which I think carries through this particular gallery, including more by Angele here. These are flamingos and peacocks. Next to this, I believe it's called the Jardine dress by Peter Som, which is very inspired by Rococo patterns and themes, including Amelia selected 3 more paintings on the other side of the dress that are very allegorical, mythological, but the color palette certainly is a very wonderful complement to this dress.
So to my right is a dress designed by Christian Siriano that was worn by Halle Berry on the red carpet for last year's Oscars in 2025. This was one of the trickier ones to pair with objects in our permanent collection because most of what we have tends to lean towards American Impressionism, which was very popular when the Art Association was founded at the turn of the last century. But the pieces that we did choose to pair with it were from a 2023 exhibition that we mounted, made entirely of lithography prints from a French gallery after World War II. So I've got a piece here by Paul Bourry, two lovely geometric pieces by Pablo Palazuelo, which really complement the geometric design of these mirrored tiles in the Christian Siriano gown. And then to my left is one of the garments that was made specifically for this exhibition by Zaria Lockhart. When we had our first video call with her about the content of the exhibition, after she expressed her interest to participate, she got all excited when we were talking about the velvet history in this area because she had a bolt of purple velvet that was manufactured in Paris that she hadn't yet found inspiration for. And so based on the conversations that we had, she created this lovely sketch of a bubble skirt gown, sent us a swatch of the velvet fabric so we knew what to expect, and created this beautiful piece with a lot of those techniques that are explored earlier in the exhibition, including ruching and pleating and beadwork. And this one we paired with a watercolor painting from our collection by Paul Lowell White of Paris during the Belle Epoque, when women were wearing voluminous skirts, kind of reminiscent of this. And it just so happens there is also a lady in that painting in a purple gown. So beautiful compliments.
This piece looks very familiar to me. And I see Janelle down there, but if you wanted to kind of just explain.
Yes, so this is a great memory from you. This was from 2019, and Janelle wore this dress at the Met Gala. The theme that year was high camp. And when Christian was here for the opening, he shared a little bit that Janelle kind of gave him complete free rein on this work. She wanted to look like a work of art, and I think many people can see a lot of cubism and surrealism as the inspiration for it. And very interestingly, all of these garments came to Mystic Museum of Art via Westport, which is where Christian Siriano has a home and where all of the storage is for these remarkable garments. Something we talk about in this gallery space as well is kind of what happens after you see a red carpet look. Does anyone wear this again at another fancy party? And really the designers are their own archivists, their own museum staff in a way, because they have, of course, such a record of these types of works over the years. So we're very lucky that it was a short Uber drive for all of them to land here.
And then do you mind just touching on the paintings that you guys have matched with it or paired with them?
Sure. I mean, Amelia knows more than I do. They're from the same suite, I believe. But yes, Amelia, if you want to jump in with Calder and the poets, that'd be great.
So in the research that we were doing and the information that Christian and his team provided to us, we knew that this particular look was inspired by artists like Picasso. And unfortunately, we do not have any Picassos in the collection, but we do have his contemporary, Alexander Calder. And so these are some selections of lithograph prints that were produced for the Derrière le Miroir gallery program, where Calder, who's predominantly known for his three-dimensional works like sculptures and mobiles, would create two-dimensional drawings. And one of my favorites is this one, which he did in partnership with a French poet named Jean Frémont. And so this gentleman here is an initial sketch for what would become a three-dimensional mobile of a man with three hands so that he could have more aerodynamics and spin. And then what was really cool about these gallery kept books is that they would very creatively combine images and text. And so you can see the end of this story is formatted to perfectly fit the curve of the goose's back. And so we do translate it for people, but the basic synopsis is that our mobile man is having these grand esoterical thoughts as he's thinking about his place in the universe, what was he made for, what is his purpose, as he spins in place and his fists orbit him like planets as he is like the center of the universe. And then this goose walks up in his fancy red boots and is like, what are you even talking about? Like, your head is in the clouds, you're really full of yourself. And they get into an argument and then start to fight over who has the better fashion, whether it's the red underpants or the red boots. And so we thought this paired really nicely, both as a visual tie-in to the Janelle Monáe dress from that time period and art style, but also as it has that kind of cheeky nod to fashion.
Thank you both for giving us a tour of the Mystic Museum of Art. When are you guys open? Like, what are your hours?
So we are open daily from 11 to 5.
Oh, sweet. And is that year-round or is it seasonal?
Well, we do have some closures for deinstallation and putting up new exhibitions, but largely year-round.
Awesome. And then I know you touched on the summer camp that's out here. Do you have any other programs going on?
Oh, we absolutely do. So we have a speaker series that's running throughout the run of the exhibition. The next event is on July 21st when we have Chelsea Mitchell from Historic Stonington to talk about immigration and industry when it comes to the local velvet mills and how they affected the local economy. But we also have guest speakers from the Mashantucket Pequot Museum, the Seaport Museum, and there's also a whole suite of workshops inspired by the exhibition that will run in the studios on Saturdays beginning in September. So that includes printing on fabric, we've got an intro to sewing class, costume jewelry. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can find on our website.
And what is your website?
It is very easy. It is www.mysticmuseumofart.org.
Awesome. And then on this area back here, on August 1st through September 13th, Denizens of the Deep. This is one of our locations. There's going to be a small pod of whales, mermaids, and sharks here. So definitely come visit the exhibit, come visit the Denizens. And where can people find you on social media?
We're on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, sweet. Thank you both again. Once again, we are at the Mystic Museum of Art. You can visit them at mysticmuseumofart.org or their phone number, which is 860-536-7601. And stop by, visit the exhibit through
October 11th.
October 11th.